Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, Venimeister here, with a standard deck tech. In this case, this is standard mono red alchemist. So what this deck is built around: Thermal Alchemist, which whenever you play an instant or sorcery spell, you untap it and it pings your opponent. And the new 2-drop, which is closer to Grape Shot, if you want to look at it that way, but it's also good. With your, in this case, non-creature spells, which is instant and sorceries in this case. There's no non-instant and sorcery non-creature spells in this deck. So basically, if you have both of these out, you can deal 2 extra damage per instant and sorcery. This really adds to the consistency of the deck. I played Thermal Alchemist, a blue-red version, before Hour of Devastation. And it really lacked consistency because it's hard to turn 2 Thermal Alchemists was really rare, and you really needed a Thermal Alchemist to pump out that extra damage. But now with Firebrand Archer, you have twice as many 2-drops. It even has 2 power, so you can get in for some damage if you want. And it doesn't require you to untap it. So with Thermal Alchemist, they can theoretically respond to the trigger to untap it and kill it in response, so that way you don't get the untaps. Firebrand Archer, it just deals damage regardless. For our burn suite, this is a burn deck. For our main burn suite, we have Shock, that's just really cheap, a 1 mana spell that triggers Thermal Alchemist and Firebrand Archer. Also deals 2 damage. Incendiary Flows at sorcery speed, but we have Sorcery Speed, Lightning Strike. That is pretty much the best that we're going to get that can target a creature or player. More than likely, this is probably going upstairs, especially with all the other burn that we have, although this could very well hit creatures, and probably will quite often. Fire Temper, 3 damage burn spell, instant speed, hit any target, but with Tormenting Voice, or Lightning Axe, or even Gyro Reach Sanactorium. If Fire Temper is ever discarded, we just pay a red, and it turns into standard Lightning Bolt. Pretty good. Triggers Thermal Alchemist like everything else in this deck, except for only a couple spells. For our card selection, we have Tormenting Voice. Obviously good with Fiery Temper, but also if we just have too many lands, or just spells that aren't good in that situation, just discard it, draw 2 spells that we need, hopefully. I have Collective Defiance Orb in here because you can wheel. You're probably not wheeling that much. It's actually more of, it's a windfall, 1-player windfall. You're probably not going to be using that mode too much on yourself, at least, because generally if you have a lot of cards in hand that are spells that you want to cast, it's pretty rare to just have a hand of like 6 lands, Collective Defiance. Although, you never know. If you have like 2 extra lands, you can do that, draw 2 cards, plus the other 2 modes. The other 2 modes are the biggest thing. 3 damage to your opponent. Not very good for 3 mana, but for an extra mana. So for 4 mana, you can do 3 damage to your opponent and just kill one of their creatures. Kill a Glorybringer, kill Goblin Dark Dwellers if you're playing against that, which we actually have in this deck. As a little bit pretty good. For the top end, we have one of Goblin Dark Dwellers. Just recast one of any of our spells. All our non-creature spells, all our instant and sorcery spells cost less than 3. 3 is the cap with Collective Defiance and Fire Timber. So it's 5 mana, you get a 4/4 menace, which is pretty good on the ground. Can get through a lot of defense. And just replay one of your burn spells, which also happens to trigger your alchemists. Also have 2 Bedlam Revelers. Later in the game, pay 2 mana for 3/4 prowess that draws 3 cards. You have to discard your hand, but with Fire Temper, if that's your last card in hand, just madness it. And if you have no other cards or just lands in hand, it's just pure. You just draw gas. We have a little bit of removal spells in the deck, because sometimes you don't want to use your burn, or you need better burn. So we have a Braid, which is instant speed, 3 damage. Instant speed is the key here. 3 damage will kill a lot, and the possibility of destroying an artifact, depending on how often that comes up. And the biggest one is Lightning Axe. Lightning Axe is one of the better ones. We only have one here, because we already have 3 at Braid. I'm kind of messing with those numbers a little bit. Lightning Axe can take maybe a couple other slots of the Braid slots. But Lightning Axe is 1 mana and deal 5 damage. You have to discard a card. Theoretically pay 5 as well, but that's unlikely. Probably discarding a card unless you have a Fiery Temper or just an extra land that you don't need. Kind of can hurt sometimes, but generally not too big of a downside. For our last spell, before we move on to the lands, is Refuse to Cooperate. Cooperate, we don't have any blue. We're not playing Cooperate. We're just playing Refuse. And this is, honestly, not necessarily the best spell. This is more of a fun of. It's in here just because it seems really fun, to cast Refuse on your opponent's spell and kill him. Theoretically, if they play a 5-drop, this is a 4 mana, deal 5 to your opponent. And by the time they're playing a 5-drop, if you already have Firebrand Archer and have been burning them, they're going to be either dead or really close to dying. So this can theoretically either end the game right away or get you really close to it where they should be scared. For the lands, we have a lot of... So we have 15 basic mountains. But besides that, we have 9 non-basics. We're running 24 lands because we do have quite a bit of high end. That number can possibly be changed, testing that out as well. But currently, I like where we are at lands, especially when 4 of them are... I'm not going to try and pronounce the first... Here, I'll try and pronounce it. Remunap Ruins, I think. I don't know if that's actually how you're supposed to say it. The one with the art should be on a better card. So taps are red. That's good. It hurts you. You're hurting them probably more than it's hurting you. So that doesn't matter. But late game, this is probably one of the worst of this cycle. This or the blue one. But it's pay 4, tap it, and sacrifice a desert to shock your opponent. Just deal 2 damage to them. It's not good, but late game, if you're flooded or if you ran out of spells, and by the time you run out of spells, they're likely pretty low. There's those 4 deserts, plus there's the 4 sun-scorched deserts. So you have plenty of deserts to sacrifice and just whittle them down slowly. Speaking of the sun-scorched desert, it is a colorless land, which can be bad if we need a lot of red, but for the most part, there is some double red, but everything that's double red has a colorless mana cost, and only 5 spells with a Lightning Axe. There's only 4 spells that don't require a colorless mana cost. So as long as you have 1 or 2 mountains, or 1 or 2 red sources, which with 19 red sources, you're really likely to hit, it's not going to affect you too much, and it's not much damage, but it's an extra damage just for playing your land for turn, which really adds up, especially when you're pinging them, shocking them, sun-scorched desert. It adds up, and that's the goal. Just add to 20. Garreach Sanatorium. Later, once you have less spells and more lands, this allows you to discard your mountains, basically, to draw a card. Helps your opponent. Slight downside, but the goal is it's going to help you more than it helps your opponent. It is legendary, and we already have 4 other non-red lands, so we're only running 1. You could probably run 2 if you want to, but I'm going to just stick with 1. And also, late game, or just whenever you want to cast this, or activate this, with Fiery Temper. If you have Fiery Temper in your hand, it's Garreach Sanatorium, and then 3 other lands, so you have to have 4 lands to do this. which is kind of a lot, but you get a Fire Temper someone, and then draw a card for 4 mana, so 3 damage, draw a card. So that's pretty decent. So this is just a budget burn deck. Some improvements if you wanted less budget, you can obviously cut out some of the worst cards, such as Refuse to Comply, maybe cut in a Braid, and like the Dark Dwellers, and put in Chandra's. Chandra's really good as more of a top end, helps you get your spells out faster, and then gives you gas every turn, can help with opponent's creatures, does everything this deck wants to do, really. And if you get to the old, I mean, by the time you got there, you probably won already, but if you get to the old, you're guaranteed your win, basically. Another improvement, I've been toying at the idea with Glorybringer. Glorybringer is a possibility. It's an upper end curve. If you do that, definitely cut the Dark Dwellers. Maybe cut like a Tormenting Voice or a Collective Defiance. Cut some of your upper end spells. And if you haven't already cut it, cut Refuse to Comply. I'd only run like 2 main board at the most, because it is a 5-drop, and that is a little much, but that is something that you can do if you want to improve this deck a bit. But for now, this is like a 17 ticket deck, I believe. So this is really cheap deck. If you just want to play some standard. I'm not sure how much this costs in paper, but not much more. Most of the stuff is really cheap. Like most of these are commons. Collective Finds is a rare. Incendiary Flow is an uncommon. But most of these are commons or uncommons. You'll find most of these pretty easy, and not many people are going to be playing a lot of these cards. So even some of the rares like Goblin Dark Dwellers, Bedlam Reveler, and Collective Finds. Those things are really cheap. These, not many people. The red deserts aren't very good, so not many people are wanting those. They're not great, but because the 1 damage is basically irrelevant. So it's basically strictly better than Mountain. Of course, there may be a corner case where the 1 damage will really hurt you when you need it, but for the most part, you should be fine, and you should have enough mountains otherwise if you need red mana, so you shouldn't be hurting for red mana in this deck at all. It is a mono-red deck. So off to the sideboard, we have a couple different spells just for a couple different situations. So in this left column, we have basically just more removal spells. So Hungry Flames. It kills a creature generally, and then also hits your opponent. Decent spell if you just need more burn for your opponent's creatures, but you also keep wanting to burn them. If you really need more, or you just need cheaper removal, you have Magma Spray. This also has the upside to exile them. So if you're facing down like a Scrap Heap Scrounger, this is perfect for that. Just kill it. You can sideboard out if it's in that case, maybe some of the top end or some of the other removal spells such as a Braid or Lightning Axe. If you're worried about like Scrap Heap Scroungers, you also do have another Lightning Axe if you need a bigger removal spell. So if you're facing bigger threats, Lightning Axe is perfect for that. I also have a 4th Braid in the sideboard just in case 3 mana is a little too much for you and for what you're wanting in the matchup, but you still need another removal spell, but you don't need like a Lightning Axe. Lightning Axe isn't always necessary. And sometimes 2 mana is better than, discarding a card if they do the same thing. For slower games, we have more Goblin Dark Dwellers, so if all your stuff keeps getting countered, you can replay Goblin Dark Dwellers and just get the spell that was countered back. Really good in that situation, and against like opposing like control decks or whatever, even if they have like a Torrential Gearhulk, you have a Goblin Dark Dweller that has Menace, so they're not going to be blocking it, and you're the burn deck, so you're going to be getting through, and be dealing more damage than their Gearhulk can to you. You're winning the race with the Gearhulk anyway. 2 By Forces just destroys artifacts. 2 mana to destroy 1. isn't necessarily great, but if they have more than one, if they have something like servos, you can just pay mana to kill each creature, or each servo by force or any other enchantments. Similarly, if your opponent's deck has a lot of X1s or X2s, and they just flood the board, Weaver of Lightning, we're running 3 of them. It just picks apart your opponent's board. If you play 1 spell a turn, you only deal 1 damage. But by the time you start playing 2 spells, or if you Tormenting Voice into Fiery Temper or something, then you can still 2 damage to a creature your opponent's control. So, this is mono red, a budget mono red burn deck, built around Thermal Alchemist and Friend, Firebrand Archer. I will be making some videos with actual matches in a competitive league shortly, if you want to stay tuned for that. And if you do, make sure to subscribe for when that comes out. And if you like this deck tech, or you have any suggestions or concerns, please leave a comment or like this video if you liked it. And have a good day.